Russia's President Vladimir Putin is threatening to hit new targets if the West sends Ukraine long-range missiles. It's not clear whether Putin is referring to targets within or beyond Ukraine's borders.
If long-range missiles are supplied, we'll make certain conclusions and use our own means of destruction. We have enough to strike at targets we have not yet been hitting.
I am now joined by DW's Russian analyst Konstantin Eggert in Riga. Konstantin, the Russian president, they're not exactly talking softly. What do you make of his comments?
Well, Putin has been talking softly for quite a long time, wasn't talking softly for quite a long time. We heard threats of using nuclear weapons, at least tactical nuclear weapons, before from him, so this is nothing new. I suppose that this shows that Putin is worried about increasing Western supplies to Ukraine, and what is even more important, the fact that judging by NATO military analysts with whom I had a chance to speak in the last couple of weeks, the state of preparation of Ukrainian army for use of these new weapons systems is increasing, and probably they will be fully operational by the end of June. So I suppose we should read it as a warning, but also as a sign of worry that new modern Western weaponry will hit the Russian army in Ukraine really, really hard.
And it could very well reverse the tide in the east, which his forces currently are winning. What do you believe that he believes the effect of his words will be?
Well, he believes that Ukrainians will be careful in using the weapons and, for example, not hit the Russian mainland, which they seemingly promised to Washington. But, you know, there are lots of shifting things during this conflict, which change basically from day to day. My feeling is that his retaliation may be very simple. He'll be hitting residential areas of major cities like Kyiv and Kharkiv, maybe if he feels that Ukrainians are overusing the new weaponry. I think what we've seen in the last few weeks is this constant toing and froing, this kind of swinging between Ukrainians saying that, well, they really want to win, and the West trying to tell them, well, could you win more gently? Especially several European countries were pushing Kiev to do that. But I think by the time Ukrainian army really acquires mastery of these newly delivered Western weapons, we'll see what kind of choice, finally, President Zelensky will make.
You just made a reference to several European countries expressing a little bit of caution. As you know, French President Emmanuel Macron has warned against humiliating Russia in order to leave diplomatic doors open when the fighting stops. Ukraine is, of course, not happy with those comments. Is there widespread sense in the West that it's indeed dangerous to corner or humiliate Putin?
Well, frankly speaking, this is an old song sung in Paris, and there's nothing new in what Macron said. There are people that sympathize with him in different other European capitals, probably in Rome, probably some in Berlin. I think that the West is divided on that. We know that, for example, the United Kingdom, Central Europe, the Baltics, part of the Nordic countries are actually pushing for a much tougher line against Putin, while Paris, Berlin, to some extent Rome, are trying to basically limit the extent to which Ukraine could respond and the West could respond to Putin's aggression. I suppose the perception is that Putin, if cornered, will become really uncontrollable and will do some really horrible things. But on the other hand, we can say that Putin always counted on the West, considering him to be so mad, so unpredictable, that it will try to placate him. And in this respect, I think what Macron, probably after these 100 hours, he said he talked with Putin for about 100 hours all in all in the last sort of half a year. And I think that Macron seemingly doesn't understand that this is exactly what Putin wants. He wants the West to see him as so unpredictable and so dangerous that it will limit its pressure.
We'll have to leave it there. That's Konstantin Eggert in Riga. Many thanks as always.
Let's go straight to DW correspondent Nick Connolly, who is standing by in Kyiv. Hello, Nick. What are Ukrainians making of Putin's comments?
Well, obviously, the take here on the streets of Kyiv is that this is a sign that the Russians are genuinely worried about the prospect of these weapons being delivered. It has to be said that these are not long-range missiles in the sense of cruise missiles or anything of the kind that Russia has that can go thousands of kilometers. Indeed, the missiles that hit Kiev this morning, the Russian missiles, will launch over the Caspian Sea thousands of kilometers away. What we're talking about here are weapons that can be used with the rocket launch systems that are being delivered presently, which at present only have about an 80 to 100 kilometer range, and there is the option to go beyond 100 kilometers up to maybe 300 kilometers in terms of the munitions that the Americans would send the Ukrainians. So this is not anything that would give Ukraine capacities on par with more modern militaries in Western Europe or in North America, but it would allow Ukraine to really hit Russia's supply chain, hit its supply lines, and really give it a significant option to really push the Russian forces back while staying at a safer distance. And that is something that obviously the Russians think would allow Ukraine to really move forward on the battlefield.
Yeah, we clearly heard what President Putin said earlier. Is the city worried this could be the start of more strikes to come over Western weapon supplies?
I mean, Russia and the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin in particular, have been making threats all along. Basically, he's been threatening nuclear war should the West supply Ukraine with more sophisticated weaponry. So this is really nothing new. And indeed, what people are talking about more here in Ukraine right now is the fact that a Russian cruise missile was detected on the security cameras of one of Ukraine's biggest nuclear power stations today. So the fact that Russia is willing to fire weapons that have been proven in the past to fail to go off target so close to a huge nuclear power station, that really for them is a sign that Russia is not really caring about the risks and whether or not they try and attack Ukrainian government buildings, the presidential palace here in Kiev. I think that's less crucial than just the willingness to really pump up the pressure now that Russia's military isn't doing too well on the battlefield.
Okay, on that, Ukraine is claiming it has recaptured large parts of Severodonetsk. If that can be verified, what is the significance of that development?
Well, obviously, this has been the central battle on the Donbass front for more than 10 days now, and there have been predictions time and time again from Western analysts that it was just a matter of days or maybe a week at most before Russia took over the city, now that Russia has concentrated its forces on a very small part of the front lines, learning from the lessons of the early months of the war where Russia spread itself too thinly. But even there, it seems Russia is not achieving the kinds of goals despite huge numbers of soldiers there, but also a huge superiority in terms of the firepower and the munitions available to the Russian forces. Obviously, journalists are not freely able to move around there, and so it's difficult to verify. But just the fact that there are Ukrainian troops still in Severodonetsk, that the Russians haven't been able to hoist their flag over the entire city, that will be seen as a victory here in Kyiv.
Okay, DW correspondent Nick Connolly in Kyiv, thank you. Well, despite the latest attacks in Kyiv, there are some bright spots. Right now, Ukraine's national football team is playing against Wales in Cardiff for a spot in the World Cup. And DW's Rebecca Retters is soaking in the atmosphere at a pub in Kyiv. Rebecca, tell us, what's the mood like?
I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you, Eddie, so I hope that I'm getting this bit right and that you are to me now. But it is pretty tense here, I'll give you that, but it's quite different from the tension that we've felt in the city in recent months, and it is a nice reprieve for people here who are able to enjoy some normalcy in the football. And one of those people is Yuri, and he joins me now. Yuri, just how important is today's match for Ukraine?
It's a really important match for us because this is the final match before we can go to the World Cup, and it's really important for us to switch from war theme to something more pleasure to us. Even though today Russia strike 6 missiles to Kyiv, we are still here, and we are trying to enjoy our lives, and we try to switch for something more pleasant for us than the war theme.
Now, we're just coming back from half-time and Wales is 1 up. How do you think the country will react if they don't make it through to the World Cup today?
I think we will handle somehow this situation because it is not the biggest problem nowadays. And this is just a football. There will be another opportunity for us to play at the World Cup or Euro Cup. So this is not the end of the world for us.
All right. Thank you very much. We certainly wish you luck for the second half.
Thank you.
So, Eddie, there you have it, a nice light reprieve for people here who've been through a pretty intense day with shelling in the morning to be able to enjoy some normalcy and watching the football, and everyone here hoping that Ukraine will make it through to the World Cup.
Okay, Rebecca, thanks for that. Rebecca Ritters there in Kyiv. Many thanks.